but I'm not going to be in any way, shape, form, or fashion in the zip code of Judas.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to Ascend the Hill with Jeremy Austill. I'm Jonathan. This is Pastor Jeremy. How's it going?
It's going very well. It's a good day.
It is a good day. And before we dive in, we're going to play. Last week we played Would You Rather. It's pretty fun. So we're going to do part 2 this week.
Okay.
But before we get started with that, you're wearing a special shirt that we need to shout out today.
Yes. So the Putnams got me a shirt, and you'll have to read it because it's hard for me to read upside down. So I've got it here. Can you see it? I don't know if you can see it on the screen.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
Pastor, because Bible preaching, devil stomping, people loving, demon busting superhero is just too long. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
that's great.
That's what Pastor made.
Did they find that or did they make that?
I don't know. I don't know. Putnams, you'll have to comment in the comment section on where that came from. I don't know about the superhero part. I'm down for the demon busting part. Sign me up for that. Devil stomping. Yeah, those are good. So just wanted to give them a shout out today.
That's fun. I love that. And that kind of leads right into playing a game because we're having some fun.
Right into Would You Rather.
Right? So we'll get started with a few of these. This one was pretty interesting. Would you rather have to use shrimp flavored toothpaste or deodorant that smells like cheese?
Shrimp flavored toothpaste or deodorant that smells like there's no other. I have to pick one.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, usually I can logically think through these. I mean, I like shrimp.
Yeah.
But would it make my breath smell like shrimp all the time?
I don't know. It would be savory toothpaste, that's for sure. It wouldn't be minty.
Yeah, I think I'd go cheese flavored deodorant. Can I pick the cheese? You know, some cheese.
Hey, it's open ended on that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do like a whatever the most mild mozzarella. It doesn't smell much. So.
What's the there's one cheese that's supposed to smell like, what's it called? Is it no, it's not gorgonzola. There's like a
gorgonzola sounds like it stinks.
I mean it's like a type of blue cheese, so it tastes weird.
I hate blue cheese. So here's the thing about cheese. I love cheese, but my palate for cheese that I love is not that big. So you'll go to a restaurant in Nashville and they'll have a charcuterie board, which is a funny word in and of itself. You know, we just called that meat and cheese tray back in the day. We called that Thursday after school, some Ritz and some Velveeta. But anyway, and they'll bring all of these cheeses. And one time Michelle and I went to a restaurant. I thought, I want meat and cheese tray. I want a charcuterie board. I want that. That's a stupid amount of money for meat and cheese. And I didn't like any of the cheeses because they didn't have nothing basic. They didn't have no cheddar. They didn't have no mozzarella. They didn't have no. So it was. Anyway, all that to say, I guess give me the cheese deodorant.
Yeah. Well, here's another food one. Would you rather love Brussels sprouts or hate ice cream?
Oh, I'd rather love Brussels sprouts.
Okay, do you already like Brussels sprouts?
No, I don't. Now, I can eat them if they're really doctored up. Like if they're sliced thin and they're roasted and there's some bacon involved and olive oil and stuff like that. Yeah, I can eat them, but I don't really like them.
Yeah.
There's a couple of places that have a good Brussels sprout dish. Stony River has one that has an appetizer and a side of it. And it's fine. I can live with it, but I don't like Brussels sprouts. Basically, it's got to taste like something other than a Brussels. But I also love ice cream.
Yeah.
I don't eat a lot of ice cream because, I mean, if we kept much of it in the house, I would do it all the time. But Michelle, yesterday was my day off. She came home with my favorite ice cream, which is Haagen-Dazs coffee. I like coffee chip, but those are harder to find. But it's the coffee, and we just so happen to have some dark chocolate chips in the house. So I'm in heaven for at least 4 nights because she got me 2 of the little containers, and I can stretch that out for 4 nights.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, ice cream is. I would never give up ice cream. That's for sure.
No, I love it, but I don't. I try not to eat a lot. It can't be good for you. I mean, it's dairy, it's sugary, it's all the things. But man, I do enjoy it.
Well, here's a few Bible ones.
Okay.
Would you rather be thrown into the furnace
All right.
or be thrown into the lion's den? Which one would you rather experience with the person or persons?
Well, like with it going the way it went in the Bible, I'm way more intrigued by the fiery furnace.
Yeah.
Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, aka Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I like that fiery furnace because like the Lord got in the fire with them.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
sign me up for that. But if you're like picking one of what are the odds of me surviving this and God, I'm gonna go over there with them lions and hope they ain't hungry.
Would you rather see the Red Sea part or be there when the sun stood still?
Wow. I'm more fascinated by the sun stand still miracle.
Really?
That
Okay.
intrigues me more because we know that, now we know scientifically that the Lord stopped the planet from rotating.
Mhm.
The sun didn't stop. The earth literally stopped.
Yeah.
So that's just fascinating to me. As much as, parting a Red Sea is a big deal, stopping the entire planet from its rotation is an even bigger miracle.
Yeah.
But the optics, I would think watching the Red Sea part would be more mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Right? So probably the Red Sea part, just because I don't even know, I don't know how big an impact it would make on you that the sun stood still.
Yeah.
Just like it's just a really long day.
Yeah.
It's like that's what it's like for people in Alaska for part of the year,
Yeah.
It's like daylight all the time. Anyway.
No, that's great. And the next question is actually related. It's not a would you rather, but we're talking about the sermon. We're finishing up the series Encounters.
Yep.
And the sermon was actually called Let Your Hair Down. It's when Mary anoints Jesus' feet with a perfume of oil. And the question is, have you ever smelled spikenard?
I have not.
Really?
I say I haven't. I know that people, obviously it's not as rare a commodity now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's possible in some anointing oil or some essential oil. I mean, they make like spikenard essential oils now. So it's possible I've smelled it before, but not intentionally.
Is there
or knowingly.
Now any of the fragrances that Jesus got in the manger, have you? Because which one is the one that is an anointing oil? Is it like
frankincense? There's frankincense and myrrh. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've probably have smelled those, but I just can't. If you put it in front of my nose, I wouldn't know that's frankincense, spikenard, or myrrh.
Well, it was just interesting because I know what I thought of frankincense the first time I smelled it. I was like, that's nice, but that's kind of weird because we're so used to like a very saturated scent profile with colognes and stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I smelled it, I was like, oh, that's frankincense? So I wonder if it'd be the same thing for spikenard.
What was it like? What was it? What do you mean?
Oh, man. Well, it was, I think it may be more floral than maybe I was expecting.
Okay.
So, but, it smelled more like, man, I don't even know how to describe it. It's in oil, so I've smelled it in anointing oil. I'm like, it smells good, but totally like foreign to what I would expect a perfume or something, Just because we're chemically altering things to make them smell good now.
Well, and on top of that, just a different hygiene dynamic. We are showering every day, twice a day, whatever. It's a different accessibility to clean water, a different accessibility to, amenities. So, for that era, maybe as much as anything, it was a cover scent. It smells good and all that, but it's a cover scent because I'm, maybe not cleaning, taking a shower every day, you know what I mean? And so that's not to say they're gross by any means, but so there's a different connection to it. And then the obvious, you said it, we're chemically altering stuff now versus then it was all organic.
Yeah. Yeah. And when Mary is doing this, of course, it's assumed as a strong smell because it's said in there that the fragrance filled the whole room.
Yeah.
So it's intense.
Yeah.
And when it happens, you said something in the message of normally that perfume was not used in the way she did. It would be anointing on the head.
Yeah.
She did it on the feet. And I think the question comes up, was even what she did to Jesus, him being, the teacher, the rabbi, also they know probably by now that he's the Messiah.
Yeah.
Was it even normal for her to even do that, even though it was in the wrong spot? Was it even normal for anyone to do that for like a rabbi or something? Beside, I know you said dignitaries, but was it a normal occurrence for that?
I would say probably not
Yeah, yeah,
necessarily. And of course, he talked about it being for his burial. And we mentioned a couple of services ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, how Mary was prophetic in this worship. Like she did something for his burial. She didn't even know he was going to die.
yeah,
So there was a level of prophetic unction in her worship there. Um, I don't know that this would have been common. It certainly, if you look in other gospel accounts where it mentions someone pouring, breaking the alabaster box, and you'll hear teachers, preachers talk about the fact that a woman, entered the space, with all of these other religious men, that was a bit astonishing, and so, yeah, definitely. But this was her home too.
yeah,
So unlike the other woman that did this, this was her home. This was her being there would have been, well within everybody's expectation. So I don't know, I can't say for certain that this would have been common
yeah,
or uncommon, but I get the sense that what she did was not expected.
yeah,
Like this wasn't so customary that everybody's like, "Oh yeah, she's doing a thing." Like,
yeah,
no, like it caught everybody's attention enough that like we need to make note of this.
yeah. And it's hard to tell. I know we talked about, is probably coming from a place of worship and things like that. But in any of the accounts that talk about Mary anointing his feet, does it mention like what she was trying to accomplish or her motive behind it, or are we just inferring that it because of her nature it was just a worship moment, especially after Lazarus was being raised?
Yeah, I think it was a matter of honor.
Yeah,
I don't even know if she would have categorized it as worship. It was this Jesus, who I believe is the Messiah. I believe he is the Son of God. I know without a doubt he raised my brother from the dead.
yeah,
Like I've listened to him teach and have just soaked in everything he said, and it's transformational for my life. I think she just walked in with a heart that was so full of honor and gratitude and love and appreciation for
mm,
Jesus. And we've maybe all hopefully been in those moments where it's like my heart, what I feel, what's going on in me for God is so significant right now that I need to get it out somehow, some way. Like I need
yeah,
to express it. And a lot of times when your heart starts to swell with gratitude and affection for the Lord, tears come.
mhm,
And I think the tears come because like something has to come out of you,
right,
you know, but like words don't do it. Nothing quite does it. And it's just this deeper expression. And so I almost feel like with Mary, there was just, her heart was about to explode.
yeah,
And I've got to do something. And this thing was like in her mind, you can imagine, like, again, I want to reiterate, this is the Messiah. This is the
yeah,
Son of God. He's raised my brother from the dead. I've sat at his feet. I've heard everything. What in the world can I do to honor him? Let me go find the most expensive, precious
mm,
thing I have, and let me just give it to him,
yeah,
pour it out on him. I mean, it's just stunningly beautiful and powerful what she did.
yeah,
And I think, let me read. I hope all of us can relate to it to some degree of just like you have these moments where you're so overwhelmed with Jesus
yeah,
that you need, not even want, you need to express it. You need to give something over to him. You need to show him in some way honor. I think
yeah.
that's what was happening here.
Yeah, and actually, for context, Jesus mentions his burial. How close is this to the crucifixion?
I can't remember what it says. Does it say it was 6 days before Passover?
Yes,
So it would have been the week, like
yeah, six
the
days
week
before Passover.
of the beginning of the week.
So literally, he's like,
This
he's
is
about,
coming.
yeah,
This is happening. And and I've heard other and read other people mention, when uh, he was being flogged, the cat of nine tails.
hmm
is it possible that that fragrance of spikenard was still on him, and her worship was in his nostrils as he was enduring all that he endured. And while he was on the cross, was her worship emanating. And, you just think about, I don't know what that means. Just real honestly, I don't know what that exactly means. But I know I love Jesus, and I hope that when he was going through all of that, when he surrendered himself to all of that, that he did smell her worship and her sacrifice, if nothing else, just to bless his heart in the middle of everything he was going through and enduring.
Yeah. When this all happens, of course, we talked about Judas kind of pipes up. He inserts his little opinion, and is this the first, I may be wrong, but this seems like the first time that in the Gospels that portrayal of Judas in a negative light is mentioned. When he makes this comment, and then it's mentioned that they bring up that he in a negative way.
Yeah, I can't say for certain is it the first time it's mentioned, but it is explicitly communicated. The Gospel of John in this text, I mean, it just, and I mentioned it in the sermon, like you can feel the indignation in the writing of, I can't stand Judas. He's a liar. He's a thief. He didn't care about the poor. He just wanted to steal some more of the money. And it does give you a picture of Judas that's different. And Judas is a complex figure in the Bible, and we don't have enough information. We can look at historical context. We can take some, some church history, and we can try to draw some conclusions. But what we know of Judas is what we see here. He had been stealing.
Yeah.
So there was some type of greed and self-centeredness in him. And he betrays Jesus, and then he feels great grief over that, and he commits suicide.
Yeah.
Some have tried to say Judas did it to try to get Jesus to, usher in his kingdom. But maybe Judas was just greedy, and maybe Judas had compromised little thing after little thing, and his small compromise ended up turning into a disastrous compromise.
Yeah.
And then you have the sovereignty of God, like to get Jesus to the cross. Somewhere along the way, something was going to have to happen. But it does, I think, Judas fulfills prophecy, but Judas wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
In the sense of they wanted to arrest him. They wanted to kill him. They could have figured out a way to do it without Judas, I think, logically. But Judas had digressed to the place. He's just a complex person. I don't even fully know what to do with Judas, admittedly, because I feel John there of like, I can't stand this guy.
Yeah.
Right. But then I feel heartbroken when he realizes what he did. And he's a difficult figure for me, but he also, in this moment, I think he operated the way a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Where we have undercurrent motives or agenda or self-centeredness. But to cover that up, we will kind of allude to something that feels moral or superior.
Spiritual.
Yes, spiritualized. I mean, I've always, I've all my life have dealt with people like every other human being, and I've spent 20-something years in ministry kind of walking things out with people. And I have learned that when someone's upset with you, when someone's offended, when there's a problem, rare is the person that will just tell you what they're offended about and what they're mad about and what they're upset about and what's bothering them. Because the objective becomes winning.
Yeah.
Not reconciliation. And so I've worked with people through the years, and they say this is my reason, and now like I've got to keep digging because that's not really the reason. But the reason they're giving sounds morally superior. Like it gives them a higher, a greater moral high ground so they can win.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, that's not really what's bothering you. Let's get down to so anyway.
Yeah.
And so Judas, he almost makes me laugh here because he's like, I want to get my hands on this money.
Yeah.
Let me throw the poor in there. Yeah.
Well, is there any parallel? Because this, as we were talking, I remembered the context when Jesus says what he says about dying and everything, and Peter pipes up and he says, "No, you're not going to die."
Right.
And then Jesus is like, "No, get behind me, Satan.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about."
Right.
And so, is there any parallel to Peter's supposed comment as well to Judas's supposed? It sounds good in theory, but you don't really understand what you're saying.
I think the motives of the heart are different. I mean, we get in this text, Judas's motives are clearly portrayed. He's a thief. He wants to get his hands on the money, and so he is leveraging the poor to manipulate the situation. Whereas with Peter, I think Peter genuinely was like, nothing's going to happen to you. And almost to like, if I have anything to say about it, nothing's going to happen. I think Peter was just misguided. Peter didn't understand what Jesus had come to do and was protective and zealous about his friend.
Yeah.
In the message, I didn't get too deep into all of the psychology of Judas and all of that because I didn't want to get lost. Like, I didn't want to inadvertently take our attention off Mary by doing this deep dive into Judas. But what Judas did on the very surface is something that I think we all have to be very sensitive to. And it's that she came and did this costly, excessive, beautiful thing. And he turned his nose up at it. He critiqued it because he had his own personal ideals, right? And so I come back to mentioning in the message that, hey, if Judas is saying something, let me get as far away from what he is saying as possible.
Yeah.
And so in all of the layers of what's happening in Judas right here, one of the layers is a criticism, a critique, an eye roll of her extravagant expression to the Lord. And I just want us as a people, that was the message, let your hair down.
Yeah.
Like, I really want everybody to let their hair down. And I know that will look different for everybody. But at the least, let's let other people let their hair down and just let it be.
Yeah.
Like, I might not let mine down that way, but I'm not going to be in any way, shape, form, or fashion in the zip code of Judas.
Yeah.
You do you. Go for it.
Do you think it also forced him to realize her devotion, and it kind of caused he realized it wasn't in him, so it made him feel insecure about his situation too? Yeah.
Possibly. And I know you're kind of asking a leading question of like, do other people's worship cause conviction or conflict in us? And I do think there's some of that. They're worshiping that way. I'm not. That makes me feel substandard in some way.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to ever feel that way. I think all of us should put our personality and our preferences under the microscope of scrutiny.
Yeah.
Like, let's put them all under, and I'd say that for myself. Okay. My personality, the way I worship, the way I express myself, we kind of had a little bit of a laugh about it Sunday. I'm more expressive.
Yeah.
I'm louder. I'm all of those things. But I'm not going to go in a liturgical church and automatically assume that because they're doing it a different way than me, that their devotion is less.
Yeah.
That's arrogance. That's pride.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we all need to make room for people to pour their heart out, to express themselves. But as a church, for me, there's always additional method to the madness. There's always additional reasons why, right? And I grew up in a church that was probably didn't amen a lot, that I mean, we worship, but it wasn't super light. And so I've had to like change some of my tendencies through the years, because I've have been in a lot of settings that are more subdued, right?
Yeah.
But I deeply believe in praise, and probably in January I'll teach on that a little more. But I believe in what praise does as it pertains to honoring the Lord. I believe in what it does in us. I believe in what it does in our thought life, not to mention supernaturally the impact it has. So anyway, I'm kind of talking in circles. So
no, like when Judas says that, and then you went right into focusing back on Mary, because everything that she was doing was kind of proclaiming who Jesus was to her and kind of pouring everything out. And literally, we talked about it. We've said it multiple times. The title of the sermon was "Let Your Hair Down."
Yeah.
And you said the statement, there are people we won't be able to reach if we can't let our hair down. And that sounds almost like the opposite of like a pretty famous saying, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. It sounds like when I hear that statement of, hey, you need to, there are people who won't be reached by what you do unless you let your hair down.
Yeah.
It seems like in my head, like you hear that phrase a lot, in circles, in Christian circles of, preach the gospel at all times, don't use words. But the statement that you were saying and the example of Mary seems to be like, no, you need to be pretty vocal. You need to be pretty expressive about your love for the Lord,
Yeah, I think so. And we talked about, which to that quote, we'll help me remember to come back to that. But I talked about in the message, you express love through radical obedience and through obedience to the Lord. In her instance, she expressed it through a gift of 1 year's worth, 1 year's wages.
Yeah.
So you can do it through financial giving. And she did it through an excessive expression of love and affection. I mean, she got down at his feet. She wiped his feet with her hair. I mean, to me, that would be the equivalent of like, I don't care what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
I don't care about anybody else's opinion. I'm gonna lift my voice. I'm gonna clap my hands. I'm gonna cry my tears. I'm gonna hit my knees. I'm gonna give the Lord something, disregarding everybody else's opinion, perspective, preference, etc. And I think, in part, what I was saying is, there are people who are far from God, and their whole life is their hair's down, in a different way,
Yeah.
And like they need to be able to come into an environment that isn't so stringent that they feel like there's no way I can ever fit.
Right.
There's no way I can ever mesh or meld into this. Right. So, back to the quote of, when necessary, use words, always share the gospel with your life. When necessary, use words. I think what the writer is saying there is the purity by which you live, the integrity by which you live, the generosity by which you live, the compassion by which you live, like all of that should scream, I'm different.
Yeah.
I follow Jesus. And then I'll use words too. It wasn't a like, you can do this without any measurable evidence. Just sit over here quiet, don't do anything, nothing observable. No, it was saying everything in your life should be observably consecrated to the Lord.
Yeah. Okay.
And if needed, I'm going to give you an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you some words and some verbiage to explain why my life is observably different than everything else.
Yeah.
Right. So the way I live is loud, not necessarily physically, literally loud, but the way I live is observably, tangibly devoted to the Lord.
Yeah. And that ties back in. We even talked last week. You mentioned living out loud because of Jesus' example.
Yeah.
He's saying things out loud, not because he needs to hear that he believes in his Father, but because so that everyone knows
Yes.
that the Lord hears him and the Lord is with him.
Yes.
And we're kind of continuing out of encounters into the same idea of being hospitable, same idea of hosting the Lord. And that starts this weekend with the series Hospitable.
Yep. We're just basically kind of doing a spinoff, if you will. I'm trying to think of like famous spinoffs, through the years. But anyway, I feel like Family Matters with Steve Urkel was a spinoff of a show.
Oh yeah, I love Family Matters though. I remember that.
Yeah, it was Harriet was on another show. It was the show that had maybe it was Perfect Strangers that had Balky. Remember Balky? You don't.
Perfect Strangers. I know Perfect Strangers. I've seen it. I forget the premise though.
So anyway, it was So Harriet on Family Matters was like she worked the elevator on I think it was called Perfect Strangers.
Really?
And her character was kind of riveting to them in that like just a small role. So they spun off Family Matters to show her family life. So all that to say, this next series for about 2 to 3 weeks is a spinoff of Encounters, but we're going to go to the Old Testament.
Okay, sweet. So make sure you're here on Sunday for the new sermon series and you're tuning in, csnlive.org. It's going to be very interesting because we've heard all these encounters with Jesus, and we're going to hear how being hospitable in the Old Testament, really impacts people too. And
yes,
and without giving too much away, do you want to say where we're landing at, or you want to keep that for Sunday?
Well, we will spend some time with a woman in the Old Testament, a woman and a prophet, and we will be with her at least 2 weeks, maybe 3. And if we're just with her 2 weeks, then we will go to another encounter with the same prophet that has to do with hospitality. So
awesome. Well, you don't want to miss it, and be on the lookout for the podcast next week, deep diving into a very unique Old Testament account that I'm excited for. And regardless, share this with a few friends. If there's something in here that really spoke to you and you feel like it would reach out to someone that you know specifically, send it to them. If they're struggling with living like Mary did, pouring out those things that that are really important to them, or living in that same devotion to the Lord, challenge your friends or even reach out to your friends. Send this to them. And
before you end, I want to reiterate something I said in the message, because I think in the middle of everything that we talked about and everything that happened Sunday, I want to revisit this. I made a covenant with the Lord when I was 24, 25, 26 years old, that I would spend the rest of my life provoking people to give to the Lord what he's earned, what he deserves from them. Not in a guilt-ridden way, not in a, condescending or condemnation way, but stirring people's hearts to see Jesus in all of his worth and to say, everything that I am, I give over, because what he's earned is all of me. Right. Yeah. So when I talk about praise, when I talk about worship, when I talk about giving, when I talk about obedience, the root of every bit of that is what I believe the assignment of my life is. And it's to bring honor and glory to Jesus. And I feel like personally, my best worship, my greatest worship is not what I do. It is what I can provoke and stir in other people, that my worship would become exponential. Yeah. Because I've stirred others to honor him as such. It's all rooted. I know we were about to end, and if anybody left. They just kind of missed the last bit, because I think because of the way I worship and because of where our church is headed, and we are headed in the direction of freedom and joy and liberty and presence in worship. Like, we're just going to keep going down that path, right? I think it would be really easy to just say that's what he likes, that's what he prefers, that's what he's used to. But at the root of it for me is Jesus.
Yeah.
And I just want him, anything I'm leading, I want him to, I want us to be Mary's.
Yeah.
Anything I'm leading, I want us to take everything we have and put it at his feet. And I'm on that journey too. Like I'm still, like, I am in, my jar ain't empty yet.
Yeah.
Right. My jar of spikenard is not empty. I'm still pouring.
Yeah.
And I'm still pouring, to try to empty that thing out.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
And your challenge is to pursue the same and let your hair down too. And so give it a shot this Sunday. We'll see you then.